Good evening, folks. Welcome to Friday Night Tech Talk. Glad you're here. If you're new here, we do this every Friday. We discuss some articles from last Friday to this Friday, some tech articles from the week. And if you're here, welcome. And Annie was the first one here a few minutes before we started. Eleanor just popped in. Glad you're here, Eleanor. So two of the most faithful right off the bat. Uh, if you're new here, please type something in the comment. Let us know you're there and let us know where you're from. And if you're a tech head like me, hopefully I have some articles that will interest you. I kind of got carried away this week. I think most of the articles are short, but I think I've got, usually I have 6, maybe 7 articles. This week I think I have 8, but like I said, I don't think any of them are really long. And there's Brian. We got the faithful all in here at the same time. Glad you're here, Brian. Thank you. So you can follow along in the show notes, which are on my website. So as I do every week, I will share the screen and show you that. And you can click on the articles yourself and follow along that way, or check them out later if you prefer. So let's go over here. Okay. So if you go to mobilegeezer.wordpress.com, click on today's date, you'll get just the show notes for tonight's show. And as I do, and by the way, before I forget, what I try to remember to tell you every week is which 2 phones I took to work with me today. And my phones are always based on which watch I'm wearing for today. So today I'm wearing the OnePlus Watch 3. So my main phone was my OnePlus 13, and my backup phone was my iPhone 15 Pro Max. So there's one thing I remember to tell you about that I forget half the time. The other thing was that Ted is not going to make it again tonight. Last week he had a family thing. This week he's out celebrating. He's had me praying about him getting a new job for a couple of months now, and I guess he's done that, and he's out celebrating. I think he starts working for the city of Dallas in a couple of weeks. So congrats to him. So, as I do every week, I will give you a little preview of the stories we're going to go through. Now, I did tell you about the Trump mobile and the Trump phone the other day, and in the article, he said it was going to be American made and blah, blah, blah. And I said here, the Trump Mobile T1 will not actually be made in the U.S. No surprise. And we kind of expected that. I think Trump might have been surprised at how hard it would have been to have his or any other phone made in the U.S. completely. And maybe now he'll get off Tim Cook's back a little bit about Apple. So we'll see. So we're going to start with that. And this week there was no big events that I know about. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I always try to pick interesting articles that you're probably not going to see everywhere. So I did find last week I gave you a story of a rocket that blew up on the before it even took off last week. And this week we've got a SpaceX crane collapse triggers an OSHA investigation. And going through this article, I was surprised at the number of accidents they have. Makes me question, is there any sabotage going on? But there doesn't seem to be any hint of that. Anyway, just a short story. And you can see in this picture here's the crane, and you can see it's already falling in this picture. So that's just a real quick one. And then automakers are backing away from CarPlay Ultra. They're making CarPlay even better And the automakers basically say they don't need the competition, and you'll see what that's about as we get there. Got that on Tom's Guide. Oh, and the other two, forgot to say, the first one was on Tech Radar, the second one was on CNBC, this one was on Tom's Guide. Then, most of you know that I was a programmer developer for 34 years, so this is kind of up my alley. A Google Gemini command line interface, Gemini CLI, kind of command line interface, found this on Android Central. So this is exciting stuff for somebody who's a developer or programmer. So another quick article. And then, over the last few years, I've been trying to keep you guys up with who's laying off workers, especially who's laying off lots of workers. Hundreds of Intel employees to be terminated. Found this on Tom's Hardware. So the whole layoff thing with all the tech companies, at least the big ones, is still ongoing. When there's any end to it, really. And then, if you remember, I gave you a video a few weeks ago that the Congress wanted to ban states from passing any AI restrictions in any state for 10 years, and which I thought was crazy. Well, they've got that in the big, beautiful bill. So I found a story on Mashable, so we'll go over that. Still think it's crazy. And then this one I just thought was cute. This was real quick, but we're all very familiar, I'm sure, with the blue screen of death on our Windows computers. So they're changing it now to the black screen of death, which I just thought was funny. So you'll go from a blue screen to a black screen, which, by the way, it made me think, okay, this gives new meaning to the old Louis Armstrong song, "What Did I Do to Be So Black and Blue?" That's how my mind works. You guys know me. Anyway, just a very short story. I just thought it was funny that they made a big deal out of changing it from blue to black. And then the last one, ChatGPT to compete with MS Office and I got a little bug in here, and Google Workspace. And they may be close to getting that out there. So those are the ones we'll go over tonight. There's nothing else new in the comments. And if Will, by some miracle, comes in, I'll certainly let you know. But it looks like you're going to have just me tonight. So let's start with the first story. The Trump Mobile T1 will not actually be made in the U.S. No surprise, I found that on Tech Radar. Trump Mobile's T1 phone won't actually be made in America, and I'm not even remotely surprised. And the original article was by Lance Ulanoff, and so is this one. This was published yesterday. America adjacent, he said. So let's drop it into review, get rid of the ads. Shocker, the Trump Mobile T1 phone will not be made in the USA. We know this because the Trump Mobile website quietly altered the T1 language and now claims the phone will be American proud design. So they changed the wording. I guess they thought they could sneak that in and nobody would notice. I think it's hilarious. It's an interesting turn of phrase and one that's reminiscent of how Apple describes the creation of its popular iPhone. On the packaging, it used to be on the devices. It says designed by Apple in California. Well, they can't say that anymore, can they? Everyone knows that products are largely assembled elsewhere, often in China, but increasingly in India and Vietnam. For months, U.S. President Donald Trump has been pressuring Apple CEO Tim Cook to build his iPhone in America. Cook has offered some plans to help shift the balance so that some of the work, perhaps some chip development, possibly some Apple Intelligence hosting, if they ever get it, might happen in the U.S., but that's never been enough for Trump. Well, maybe now it will, let's hope. But now, maybe, just maybe, Trump will change his tune. Even though the president is not directly involved with Trump Mobile or the T1 phone, it's a Trump family business. It has all the earmarks of a Donald Trump creation. That's true, including the gaudy gold finish and that somewhat oddball design. Why is it so tall? Go back and take a oh, you can see it's very, very tall, and nobody's sure because we're not going to see this until September. So, um, the Made in the U.S. claim was no accident. That's Trump's entire brand. The new wordsmithing on the Trump mobile site is nothing if not entertaining. Here's the new wording. The T1 phone isn't just powerful, it's brought to life. Get this, it's brought to life right here in the USA. He's right, it is entertaining. With American hands behind every device, we bring care, precision, and trusted quality to every detail. So they're doing everything except saying, well, it's not really made here. Is that Americans' hands collecting the money on pre-orders? I doubt it means that anyone is assembling the phone in the U.S. Maybe there's a U.S. designer who's looked at all the existing Android 15 smartphones and selected his favorite bits. I give them credit for including the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. Me too. Made for America, more like it. Trump Mobile, though, is facing the hard truth of 21st century consumer electronics. Almost nothing is built in the U.S., and almost all the components needed to make the phone are fabricated outside the contiguous United States. As we reported a few weeks ago, living up to Made in the U.S. claim was challenging at best. Firstly, Made in the USA has a high bar. Professor Ting-Long Dai, who teaches at the Johns Hopkins University Carey Business School, told us the FTC has a strict standard for Made in USA. Almost all parts and processing must be domestic, if you're going to use that language. Judging by that standard, the claim is unrealistic, you think? Will Trump finally concede to Cook that, yes, perhaps it's not reasonable to demand that you build your iPhone here in America when I can't even build my own name-branded phone here in the U.S.? He really needs to get off Tim Cook's back about this. The $499 phone has been on pre-order for less than 2 weeks, but I do wonder if anyone who was sold on the idea of a modern Made in the USA handset has been requesting the return of their $100 down payment. Will more people now wait until the phone shifts later this year and for the first reviews to appear before they buy? That's assuming Trump Mobile offers the phone for a review. That would be nice. For American tech media, that means Trump Mobile will need to figure out how to get the phone to the U.S. first. I just think the whole thing's hilarious. So hopefully it means he gets off Tim Cook's back. I just thought that was a good way to start the show tonight. Okay, and on to some more of SpaceX's serious problems. Or, well, when you get into the article, it does seem to be a serious problem. SpaceX crane collapse triggers OSHA investigation. Like I said, found it on CNBC.com, so let's go check it out. SpaceX crane collapse in Texas being investigated by OSHA. This was from yesterday, written by Laura Colandi. First time I've seen her name, so pardon my flubbing up her name. Hopefully I got it right. All right, let's drop into reader view. A SpaceX crane collapse at the company's Starbase Texas facility on Tuesday has prompted an investigation by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, the federal agency told CNBC in an email. The crane collapse was captured in a live stream by Lab Padre on YouTube, a SpaceX-focused channel. Clips from Lab Padre were widely shared on social media, including X, which is owned by SpaceX CEO Elon Musk. And I was going to go get the X picture, but you can see just from that picture that I showed you that, yeah, it was collapsing. So I don't think we need to go on X and look at it. It wasn't immediately clear whether any SpaceX workers were injured as a result of the accident. Pardon me. Musk and other company executives didn't respond to a request for comment. Yeah, I didn't know people get hurt, I guess, at SpaceX fairly often. A spokesperson for OSHA told CNBC that more details will be available after the investigation is complete. Get this, SpaceX has a history of workplace injuries, I had no idea, that exceed industry average, Reuters previously reported. In 2014, one of the company's employees, Simon LeBlanc, died on the job due to what OSHA concluded was a failure by the company to protect him from a clear hazard. So they have a bad track record with this stuff. I had no idea. Earlier this year, the Department of Government Efficiency, a Musk-led effort by the Trump administration to slash the size of the federal government, cut OSHA's resources and shuttered at least 11 of its field offices. Through DOGE, Musk sought to reduce federal agency budgets, personnel, and even certain regulations, limiting their ability to investigate and enforce existing laws. So I wouldn't think he was purposely trying to cut them off from investigating his company, but it seems like that's where it ended up going. See, Mike is in here. Hey, Mike, glad to have you. Mike is saying no one can afford to manufacture, let alone source the components for a smartphone. Yeah, referring to the first story. Then he says, frankly, I don't see a reason to introduce a Trump phone. There are far too many good recognized products already. Yeah, but the Trump family likes making money. They don't care if there's a reason or not. That's just how they are. And I guess that's why they're rich. But you make a good point. All right, back to the story. So I don't think he was trying to get them to stop investigating his company or companies specifically, but that seems like that's where they got to his cuts. The SpaceX crane collapse followed a string of explosions, which we had one last week, which I told you about, and other setbacks for the company's Starship Super Heavy launch vehicle, the largest rocket ever flown, which is key to Musk's ambition to transport equipment and people to Mars. Environmental activists in the U.S. and Mexico say those explosions have harmed sensitive habitat, wildlife, and marine life. I had no idea. SpaceX said in post online that its activity had not harmed the surrounding area during the most recent explosion on June 18th. Yes, and we told you that in this last week's story. Starship was previously expected to play an important part in NASA's effort to return to the moon. SpaceX had earned more than $20 billion in federal government contracts, mostly from the Department of Defense and NASA. Well, yeah, NASA doesn't trust Boeing to bring their astronauts back because Boeing keeps killing people like they did again last week. And I don't know if you guys know it, but part of the reason I think that NASA doesn't trust Boeing, two of Boeing's whistleblowers that were testifying, one was getting ready to testify, I think 2 years ago. Well, he mysteriously died. Nobody knows why. He was in San Francisco, I believe. I think he died in South Carolina. And then there was another one who had a heart attack in the days that he was actually testifying. He had a heart attack and died, I guess, one night. So people that whistleblow on Boeing seem to just die mysteriously. So I think that's why NASA would rather go with SpaceX than Boeing. I would not get on a Boeing plane for anything, and they proved me right again last week. Let's see. Brian says, "Oh, we're talking back to the phones. I'll stick to the more established phones." Yeah, me too. I said when I did the story, I wasn't buying one. I can't trust a phone associated with Trump. Yeah, plus it's a first-generation product. So, yeah, I think good idea for us all to stay away from that. All right, back to the story. Meanwhile, NASA's proposed lean budget for the next year has not yet been authorized by Congress and could impact the agency's business with SpaceX and the shift of the focus of its emissions. Yeah, I don't think they have any place else to go but to SpaceX because they can't trust Boeing. Musk, who was President Donald Trump's biggest financial backer, sought to appoint his friend Jared Isaacman, a commercial astronaut, to lead NASA under the second Trump administration. Trump withdrew his nomination of Isaacman as the president bickered with Musk in the waning days of the billionaire's formal involvement with the White House. So anyway, I didn't know they have this history of accidents and a history of people getting hurt in their accidents. So I just thought I should report on that. Let's see, Mike is saying 50 plus years ago, there wasn't an internet to disseminate the vast number of acts. That's very, very true. But at the size of SpaceX and with Musk kind of money, my guess is he probably isn't bad at not letting these things get out, or at least squashing them to some degree. So I'm just glad I came across the story, and that we all see more of what's really happening. Who knows how much we're seeing, but at least it's some. So on to my next story. Okay, CarPlay, Apple CarPlay. Automakers backing away from CarPlay Ultra. They don't need the competition. That's how I phrased it. You'll see why. I got this on Tom's Guide. Apple CarPlay Ultra stalled. These brands now say they're out because they were initially in. Written by Scott Junker, who does a lot of their good articles, including Mercedes-Benz and Audi. So they're out. So let's drop into review. Apple finally revealed CarPlay 2 as CarPlay Ultra in May. Initially, it was supposed to be in Aston Martin, Kia, and Hyundai vehicles. However, a new paywall Financial Times report via MacRumors claims that a number of major manufacturers are backing away from commitments to support the next generation of the CarPlay software system. Manufacturers retreating include Audi, Mercedes-Benz, Polestar. I didn't even know Polestar was still in business. Renault and Volvo. The major overhaul was announced at WWDC 2022, so a few years ago, and showed up again in 2023 with previews on Aston Martin and Porsche dashboards. When it was initially revealed, at least 14 automakers were listed as future supporters. Compared to the current CarPlay interface, Ultra is meant to replace the entire dashboard, and this is where they're butting heads with the car makers. Not only will you see traditional iPhone apps, but also vehicle information like speed, fuel levels, and temperature. So now you're crossing over into their software. Apple has called it a unified and consistent experience across all the driver screens. Apparently, the luxury automakers are concerned about maintaining their own software and in-car experiences, and I don't blame them. From the FT report, some companies have found Apple's foray into driver screens as overreach. One executive at Renault, which is developing a vehicle mainly controlled by software with Google and Qualcomm, so they're already working with others, said the French car maker told Apple, "Don't try to invade our own systems," and this is where the problem is. Additionally, Ford, Nissan, and Jaguar Land Rover still seem to be on board, but wouldn't really comment to Financial Times yet, because my guess is they're probably not going to be on board, or they're making up their minds. Apparently, BMW will implement CarPlay, but not the new CarPlay Ultra. Audi seems like it will follow the BMW model, saying it wants to offer a customized and seamless digital experience. And to me, I can't blame them for wanting to put their own software in their cars. Aston Martin already offers CarPlay Ultra. Didn't know that. I don't have an Aston Martin. According to FT, Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis are still committed partners with Porsche, planning future support. Now, I do get to drive Genesis cars at work for Enterprise, but the biggest thing, I've taken those Genesis cars two servers for are for screens that weren't working, so I haven't seen the new CarPlay in their cars. Uh, Brian says, back to last, Elon's rocket seems to fail all the time. Yeah, that's maybe true, Brian, but I think that's always been true. I think it's always been true for NASA too. So I think that's just part of the business. Okay, back to here, almost done with the article. Despite the setback, Apple apparently told Financial Times that more manufacturers are coming on board. I wonder where they're getting that from. We're collaborating closely with automakers to provide the best of iPhone and the best of the car, and this work takes time, Apple said. When any vehicles with CarPlay Ultra will actually be available has not been announced. So I don't blame the car manufacturers. Just thought that was an interesting story. Okay. Now, something for developers or us programmer types. A Google Gemini command line interface, Gemini CLI, just came out the other day. I found this on Android Central, but then I found there was a bunch of articles regarding it and some videos too. So, Gemini is heading to your command line as an open source AI agent, written by Brady Snyder 2 days ago. The AI models want to supercharge your terminal. I think this is a very good thing. Now, into reader view we go. And as I said, this is the kind of thing that's going to excite developers and programmers. Probably nobody else, but it's powerful. Google is bringing Gemini to a new place that's particularly handy for developers and programmers, what I just say. The command line interface. The company today announced Gemini CLI, an open source AI agent that aims to upgrade your terminal while keeping security and locality at the forefront. Gemini CLI is powered by Gemini 2.5 Pro, so you have to have the Pro version, and offers a 1 million token context window, and best of all, it's free. Yeah, I guess it's free in the Pro version. That's my guess. Brian, thank you as always, sir. Thank you. Ellie likes the fact that it has a command line. Yeah, anybody who's done development is probably going to like that. Okay. While the latest Gemini 2.5 Pro model is at the heart of the Gemini CLI experience, its capabilities don't end there. The tool can also use Google Search to access real-time data in addition to the model's local knowledge base. It supports growing open specifications like the Model Context Protocol, so users can add their own sources and extensions. That's really cool. Some Gemini CLI works within no, not some. Since Gemini CLI works within your terminal, you can personalize it to match your current workflow and processes. The preview is fully open source. That's great, meaning it can be peer reviewed to ensure it's secure. That's great. You would probably want to see what you're adding to your terminal before installing Gemini CLI, and Google is letting you do just that by opening it up. That's awesome. See, yeah, Mike's another one who used to do development. I used to work at the end of the runway in the Marines. We regularly had helicopter and fixed-wing accidents. Okay, didn't know that. If humans are involved, things are going to eventually go pear-shaped. Well, that's probably true. Yeah, I knew Mike had worked in Marines. I didn't know he worked at the end of the runway, though. So interesting. Okay. Google says that Gemini CLI will add powerful AI capabilities from code understanding and file manipulation to command execution and dynamic troubleshooting to your command line interface. That's pretty much what any developer is going to use that stuff for. It'll also make it possible to write code, debug issues, and streamline your workflow with natural language without using a separate chatbot or IDE. That's great, per the company. Speaking of integrated development environments, that's what IDE is, Gemini CLI is integrated with Gemini Code Assist for when you'd rather work in an app like VS Code. That's interesting. The two tools are sharing tricks as Gemini Code Assist now gets an agent mode, cool, to match the functionality of Gemini CLI. The idea is that whether you want to work in a terminal or an IDE, you'll have an AI agent to help in general. Yeah. Now, when I left programming, now keep in mind I left programming 10 years ago. I was working in IDEs a lot, so I wasn't doing as much command line stuff. But it's nice to have both, believe me. Developers and programmers that are more familiar with CLIs than graphical user interfaces might find it easier to integrate Gemini CLI into their processors than a traditional AI chatbot. Similarly, this terminal add-on could give peace of mind to users that want to use local open source AI on their devices without the hassle. It's available for preview starting today. This was 2 days ago, for free with a personal Google account. So you have to have that personal Google, and you can install it here. So I guess you can try it out for free. So just interesting stuff for anybody who's into developing a program. Okay, that's new. Intel. Hundreds of Intel employees to be terminated. I just happened to run into this story on Tom's Hardware yesterday. And I usually try to keep you guys up with this kind of stuff. Intel lays off hundreds of engineers in California, including chip design engineers and architects. Automotive chip division also gets the axe. A lot going on here. This is from 2 days ago. The axe swings. So into reader view we go. Intel has begun cutting jobs in California as part of its cost-cutting and restructuring strategy introduced by CEO Lip-Bu Tan. The move comes 2 months after Tan warned that staff reductions were unavoidable and that 15 to 20% of the company's staff would be laid off. That's a lot. Officially, Intel, and I'll bet you AI is behind some of this, but I don't think they mentioned that here. Officially, Intel is eliminating excessive management layers, but a CRN report indicates that the company is surprisingly laying off chip design engineers. Well, we've already had stories where the AIs are designing chips too, and architects. Additionally, the company is shutting down its automotive chip division, according to Oregon Live. Interesting. Among the job categories being eliminated are 22 physical design engineers, 3 physical design engineer managers, and several logic and product development engineers. The company is also removing roles such as cloud software architects and engineering managers, in addition to positions tied to business and project management, including a vice president of IT that are really cutting, and multiple technology strategy leads. Employees in California are engaged in the development of CPU and GPU products. According to a notification submitted to the state, 107 employees based at Intel Santa Clara headquarters will be laid off. The filing complies with California's WARN Act, which requires disclosure when 50 or more workers are affected within a 30-day period. I think that's a good law. The layoffs are scheduled to begin on July 15. Impacted employers have been given either a 60-day notice or a shorter 4-week notice paired with 9 weeks of compensation and benefits. Intel is also exiting the automotive chip market, so they're leaving that completely. That's why. The division which operated with the client computing group will be shut down. Intel's automotive business is based in Munich, Germany, leveraging its proximity to major European automakers and supplying. And we know a bunch of the European automakers are in trouble, especially Volkswagen. As of 2024-2025, the unit is or was led by Jack Wiest, a longtime Intel veteran, Intel fellow, and former VP at Mobileye. To succeed in developing platforms for software-defined vehicles, Intel's automotive unit had autonomy over product strategy and consumer engagement. Most employees in that unit are expected to lose their jobs as the company shifts focus to its core offerings in client and data center solutions. The cuts are part of Intel's larger effort to eliminate layers of bureaucracy, yeah, they're really doing it, and improve execution speed. and it sounds like they're in some serious trouble to me. In an internal communication from April, TAN highlighted a shift in performance measurement, criticizing a past practice where leadership success was tied to the size of one's team. Well, that always happens. He stated that going forward, efficiency and impact with smaller teams will be Intel's way of operation. I've been surprised to learn that in recent years, the most important KPI for many managers at Intel has been the size of their teams. Lip-Bu Tan wrote in a letter to employees back in April. Going forward, this will not be the case. I'm a big believer in the philosophy that the best leaders get the most done with the fewest people. We will embrace this mindset across the company, which will include empowering our top talent to make decisions and take greater ownership of key priorities. Tan emphasized that leadership would be responsible for determining how to best align personal changes within the company's strategic priorities, which include laying off 15 to 20% of its personnel. Earlier this month, it turned out that the company will lay off 15 to 20% of its fab staff, as well as outsource, a significant portion of marketing operations to Accenture, which is projected to use AI, what did I say, to communicate with Intel customers. Intel is committed to reducing spending by $500 million this year and an additional $1 billion the following year. So, it sounds to me like they're in some serious trouble. I guess we'll find out. And of course, Intel has been having trouble for a few years. Just to know it was that bad. Ellie is saying Intel is having troubles. More units selling with AMD than Intel. Yeah, that's been happening. So many glitches with the Intel processors. Oh, didn't know that. In Win 11 units, most are switching to and not in the mainstream news. Okay, so this has been going on. So I was right. I guess they really are in trouble. Let me get a little sip of green tea. Pardon me. And we will continue on. Stop the state. Oh, I just found this picture, but safety be damned is what I said. Safety be damned. Senate includes ban blocking states' AI regulations in the big, beautiful bill. So I told you that the Congress was trying to stop states from having any kind of AI regulation for 10 years. Well, they've jammed it into this bill. And I was surprised at that. So let me put this up because I think this is very, very stupid and unsafe. Senate upholds ban on state AI laws in Trump's budget bill. And this is unmanageable. Big news for tech companies, yeah. Money first, safety second. That's what it sounds like to me. And this is from the 22nd by Chance Townsend. Let's drop some of these commercials. As Republicans in Congress push to pass Donald Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill by July 4th, so they got another week, the Senate parliamentarian has been quietly reviewing its sweeping provisions. While some controversial items like proposed SNAP spending cuts have been removed, one surprising element has remained intact, a 10-year moratorium blocking states from regulating artificial intelligence. I think that's as dumb an idea as I've ever heard. Mike saying the big, beautiful mess. Yeah, I think that's what it is. I just think this is really dangerous. According to Senate Budget Committee Democrats, the Senate parliamentarian said that the AI moratorium compiles with the special budgetary rules Republicans are using to advance the bill. If passed, the measure would bar states from enforcing new AI regulations. Why would they want to do that? For a decade, and would penalize those that do by withholding federal broadband funding. So they all have to be getting paid by the big tech companies. That's the only way this makes sense. The provision isn't final yet. It can still be challenged on the Senate floor and only needs a simple majority vote to be struck from the bill. Still, It has drawn bipartisan backlash. Good. Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene notably admitted she hadn't read the bill. Yeah, I think good idea, and said she would have voted against it had she known the provision was included. So these people are always passing stuff and they don't read the bills, which I find amazing. If the spending package passes as it is, it would mark a major win for tech companies eager to avoid a fragmented landscape of state AI laws. With no sweeping federal AI framework in place, states have been left to navigate a complex mix of data privacy, copyright, and algorithmic governance issues on their own. This moratorium would effectively freeze these efforts in their tracks. And Ellie is saying, you are right. I think it's beyond dangerous, so unsafe. Why can't they? Because they're getting paid in their pockets. That's why. That's my guess. And our tech companies have all the money in the world, don't they? So far, 47 out of 50 U.S. states, so they're going to stop these laws in 47 to 50 states. That's incredible. Have either enacted or proposed some form of AI legislation reflecting broad, bipartisan concern over the technology's unchecked growth, which I think is a very smart move. More than 200 state lawmakers from both parties have urged Congress to scrap the moratorium on with them, warning it could override a wide range of consumer protection laws. Well, that's the whole idea, isn't it? These include regulations aimed at safeguarding children's online safety. Yeah, there's been a lot of that in Arizona, I know that. Addressing harms from generative AI and overseeing how governments adopt and deploy AI systems. So they're trying to jam that through. My guess is they'll get it through. But yeah, these guys are obviously getting paid. Mike saying, about as useless as the. Good point, Mike. I had forgot all about that. About as useless as the build it back better and better. Doesn't matter the party, they all love to spend and centralize control. And Mike, you're absolutely right, Mike. Couldn't agree more. Okay. So just so you guys, and this is the kind of stuff I say you probably are not going to hear this kind of stuff everywhere. This is why I try to get this stuff, at least so you guys are aware of it, because a lot of people aren't going to make you aware of it. Okay, and this one I just found cute. Microsoft replacing the blue screen of death with the black screen of death. I found this on The Verge yesterday. Windows is getting rid of the blue screen of death after 40 years. We all know that one. Microsoft is saying hello to the black screen of death error message instead. So let's get to read it here. The blue screen of death has held strong in Windows for nearly 40 years, but that's about to change. Microsoft revealed earlier this year, this is the first I heard of it, that it was overhauling its blue screen of death error message in Windows 11, and the company has now confirmed that it will soon be known as the black screen of death. The new design drops the traditional blue color, frowning face, and QR code in favor of a simplified black screen, which you can see right here. Your device ran into a problem and needs to, so without the other stuff that was in the blue screen of death. The simplified black screen of death looks a lot more like the black screen you see during a Windows update, that's true. But it will list the stop code and faulty system driver that you wouldn't always see during a crash dump. IT admins shouldn't need to pull a crash dumps off PCs and analyze them with tools like WinDBG just to find out what could be causing issues. I used to use WinDBG 10 years ago when I was still programming, occasionally. Okay. This is really an attempt on clarity and providing better information and allowing us and customers to really get what the core of the issue is so we can fix it faster, said David Weston, Vice President of Enterprise and OS Security at Microsoft in an interview with The Verge. Part of it just clear information. I think I should say part of it is, but anyway, on what exactly went wrong, where it's Windows versus a component. Microsoft says it will roll out this new black screen effect design in an update to Windows 11 later this summer, along its new quick machine recovery feature, which is designed to quickly restore machines that can't boot. The changes to the BSOD are part of a broader effort by Microsoft to improve the resiliency of Windows in the wake of last year's CrowdStrike. I can see why, which left millions of Windows machines booting to a black screen of that, and that was all over the world too. Mike saying should include a Frogger simulation screen instead of just a black screen. That's true. You got to be old like you and me to know Frogger. At least I think. Frogger used to be fun though. That's a good one, Mike. Okay. So that's that one. And one left. See, with me alone, I knew it was still going to be an early night, even though I had a bunch of stories. So one left. ChatGPT to compete with Microsoft Office and Google Workspace. No, I left that as a question mark. It may be close. Found this on Tom's Guide. ChatGPT is reportedly building a Google Workspace and Microsoft Office rival. Now, keep in mind, Microsoft is a huge investor, practically an owner of a lot of ChatGPT. So this is some real competition. Here's what we know by Amanda Caswell, published yesterday. It might just become your go-to doc editor. So this is some serious competition for the others. All right, into reader view. Mike said, old guy humor. Yeah, well, you and I understand. Mike's younger than me. He's not as old as I am, but he's old too. Yeah, Mike, I think Mike's still be in his 60s or early 70s. Of course, I've already crossed 80, so. All right, ChatGPT is reportedly building a Google Whisper and Microsoft Office rivals. Here's what we know. I use ChatGPT every day to brainstorm ideas, test AI prompts, and sometimes even help my kids with homework. But now it looks like OpenAI is planning to take things a step further. According to a new report from The Information, the company is quietly, I think that's the key, quietly, building features that would turn ChatGPT into a full-blown productivity suite similar to Google Workspace. Google's not going to like that, including collaborative documents and built-in chat. That means instead of toggling between Google Docs, Slack, and ChatGPT, users could soon do it all in one place. And as someone who lives inside these tools, that's a huge deal. Yeah, because it would save people a lot of time once they get used to it. Ellie said Frogger for the win. Okay. And Mike says, perhaps use ChatGPT to alter accents for customer support. Well, I'm not going there. Okay. That means, I already read that. On to the next one. Okay. A quiet move with big implications. According to The Information, reporters Amir Efrati and Natasha, this one's a little harder for Mascarenhas. Okay. Take one syllable at a time. I guess I'm good. OpenAI has designed tools that enable people to co-edit documents and communicate via chat within ChatGPT. That would be real handy. If launched, this would position OpenAI as a direct competitor to Google Workspace and Microsoft Office, including Microsoft, its own biggest investor. Yeah. Yes, it's a bit awkward, but it makes sense. If OpenAI wants to evolve from just a chatbot into a full platform, it needs to go where people actually work. And that means docs, comments, live editing, and genuine collaboration. That's true. Why I'm paying close attention. These new features haven't launched yet, but the idea alone changes how I think about ChatGPT. Right now, it's an amazing assistant, and tools like projects, tasks, and image library prove it has the capability of being a full-fledged workspace. I've already traded my notes app for it. Interesting. If OpenAI builds in a shared editing, sidebar chats, and doc-based memory, it could really start to look less like a chatbot. Here's what I'm most excited about. Collaborating on drafts with ChatGPT and a human editor at the same time, having inline AI suggestions that actually edit the document, discussing edits right inside the doc. That's really productive. No more jumping between Google Docs and Slack. Keeping all my creative thinking notes and final product in one space, especially if you're working with a team. I consider that be very, very productive. The Microsoft elephant in the room. OpenAI's biggest investor, Microsoft, already integrates ChatGPT tech in its Office products via Copilot. But if OpenAI builds its own native alternative, it sets the stage for a complex rival. Yeah, is Microsoft going to even allow this? I think they probably could stop it if they want. They're partners, yes, but they're increasingly competing for the same users, those who want smarter, faster AI powered tools to get things done. And you should know, I just listened to a video today from a knowledgeable YouTuber who makes a lot of business related videos, and he was talking about how tech companies are getting around the government investigating them. Instead of taking over companies, they're doing what Microsoft did, putting so much money into a company, they practically have control, but the government isn't looking at it as they own the company. So that's why I'm thinking Microsoft maybe could stop this if they wanted to. Anyway, bottom line, OpenAI has mentioned the potential for a social platform. That's true. I brought that up 2 weeks ago, I think. And a new device that takes us off our screens completely. This new project underscores the company's drive to give users more. Although these collaboration tools aren't live yet, the fact that they exist behind the scenes tells us where this is all heading. ChatGPT is becoming a place to do more for even the most casual user, and when it launches, I'll be one of the first in line to try it. So interesting. I'm going to try to keep up whether or not this comes to fruition, or whether or not Microsoft stops it, or whether or not somehow Microsoft incorporates it into their stuff. But very interesting anyway. So it sounds like it's going to become very, very productive. So that's it for tonight, folks. Mike. Oh, okay. Mike says he's 6 years younger than me, so he's 74. Okay. And Mike says, ChatGPT, the Atari of AI. I guess that's probably true. So, got through all the articles pretty quick. Still isn't even 9 o'clock, so said we'd be done quickly. And thanks to all of you guys for your comments. You guys make it much more interesting just by keeping the conversation going. And I didn't show you the part where you had the discussion, but we've had lots of discussion here tonight, thanks to you guys. So I will be back next week. And thanks to all of you guys for coming in. Thanks, Brian, as always, for your donation. Very faithful. And all you other guys, thanks for being here. Thanks for sticking with me. And hopefully we'll get Ted back next week. There's always hope. So you guys have a wonderful and blessed weekend. Oh, and because I'm always telling you guys we all do better when we love each other. I was thinking of a song from the 60s the other day that had that whole idea built into this. It was come on, people now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Which I used to sing back in the 60s. And I'm like, yeah, that incorporates we all do better when we love each other. So I'm probably going to give you that line every week when I'm leaving. So you guys have a wonderful and blessed weekend, and I will see you all next week.